used to say it's the Angels bowling in heaven.
Yeah.
That was a big strike, I'll tell you.
Must be having a tournament.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, one time.
Yeah,
The
when
Big
it,
Lebowski.
when it goes live.
Okay. All right, we're all set, bud.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome. This is a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Present are Tim Petrikis and Tim Keeney, Selectmen, Mike Marinaccio, Chief Financial Officer, Brian Wissinger, Assistant Finance Director, Kim LaFleur, Operations Director, and Chief John Roach. The first item on the agenda, John, is staffing. I know we're having some difficulty hiring and retaining qualified fire and emergency personnel, but want to go through
Yeah, so I sent out the email with the details about, we've got some people coming and going. We don't technically have an end date for a couple of our members just yet, but I think it's a matter of days, maybe a week or two, not a long period of time, based on where they're going to be going. Just basically going to turn to us and say, they're going to turn to them and say, we're ready for you, come on in tomorrow morning. But obviously they can't give an end date to us until they get a start date from where they're going. One of the recommendations I do have for the Board of Selectmen is I would make an offer for full-time position for Cody Lemire. He would be a firefighter paramedic full-time. I'm not even 100% sure. He's been honest with me that he is interviewing at several other places, but we thought we would at least try it. If those don't work out, then we'd like to bring him on board at the end of July this month.
how far off are we in terms of our pay scale vis-a-vis other towns?
So some of our members that have been working us here for 3 or 4 years, they're going to, and they get the fire marshal bonus here. They're leaving us and going to another fire department 20 minutes away from here, and they're getting probably a $15,000 a year raise at starting base pay.
What's that as a percentage, John? So like a third?
Quarter,
Probably 25% raise.
not 25%.
Wow, it's pretty hefty.
Yeah. And they're not being used as a fire marshal or anything like that. It's just straight up firefighter.
And that's the
Paramedic
start, so
or
that's
No,
not,
that's EMT, and they don't even do transport, so they're not
Huh?
even on the ambulance.
and that's
strictly
the
fire.
start, so there's increases
And they've
based
got,
on a contract,
it's a
obviously.
bigger department, so they've got promotional opportunities, they've got lieutenants, captains, all that, so.
And you have 14 full-time positions that you're slated for?
Or between part-time and full-time. That's,
How many
Half of them.
full-time?
8 are full-time, and the rest are part-time.
And half are currently open,
Half of it is between full-time and
with
part-time.
compensation rates that are significantly lower than what they can get elsewhere.
And
So
we've
how
got,
do we address this issue?
well, to John's point, we have a new contract coming up in 2022.
Correct. So the contract negotiations open up in 22, it'll be for another 3 years.
And when does that when would that
It
contract
would
start?
take effect July 1st. So we just enter year 3 of the 3-year contract. We did talk back and forth. It didn't make sense to reopen the contract right now in year 3 of a 3-year contract, but going
Yep.
forward, it's just kind of one of those. The contract negotiations are going to open up in January, February. Just want to at least don't want any surprises with anybody on the radar when we start talking numbers or what we need to do for the package.
Short term, how do you cover yourself?
Yeah, what are the options?
Short term, there may be some overtime for some of the critical shifts. As I said, looking down the road, come October, November, we're going to be in better shape when one of the members that's on medical leave will hopefully be coming back.
Yeah.
He's been away for about a year, right?
Yeah.
He's actually been out. He'll be out for a total of about 20 months when all is said and done.
Yeah.
So that hurts. I've got a member on military leave, obviously. We respect that. We've got to maintain that position for him, but
Yeah.
that hurts right now in the middle of everything else. So when he comes back, that's another help, another body. We've got some options. Looking at some people that may be interested in part-time in the fall, things like that. So maybe we'll fill some of those spots. But it just right now, all of the big cities around us are all hiring for full-timers, and so we're competing with that same pool, and they're grabbing them left and right.
Well, as Bud said, what are the options in the near term to address the problem?
So,
Besides full-time, overtime is not going to attract new people.
correct.
And what did we take?
So-
What was the total overtime expense last fiscal year? And if you don't have it here, if you could email it to me in the next week or so.
It was probably about, including COVID shifts, because that was another
Yeah.
unique part of it, was probably about $65,000,
Okay.
65 or $70,000, I want to say.
How much of that would be COVID, half or less?
I think about 50,000 was reimbursed for COVID.
Okay.
Because we did, don't forget, last year we did put on a third ambulance full-time for, when we borrowed Enfield's ambulance, and then we got our own ambulance, we went in a COVID truck all summer long, so.
So had it been a more normal year, maybe 15,000 would have been an overtime expense?
Above and beyond our normal, I mean, you're gonna have some normal overtime, so probably would have, our normal overtime's 15, we probably would have hit 30 last year.
Okay, thanks. The reason I ask is that,
We spent
We did some
34
ex-
not counting COVID.
yeah, we did some exercises where we were paying a lot of overtime for hourly people. We found if we went to top of scale, we had better people that showed up all the time and actually did the work, and we ended up taking the overtime budget to like zero, right? So when you look at it and you say, wow, 15,000 times six people would be a $90,000 expense. It may not be that. It might be half that, because you can limit overtime if people are on their scheduled shifts doing the work they're supposed to do. So that's why I was asking. I appreciate that info.
So, yeah, and we have to, I mean, we're working with it. The hard part is we're competing with the West Hartfords and the East Hartfords right now. So West Hartford right now, they've got 9 open positions for firefighters and paramedics, and their starting salary is like $78,000 a year, we're 40.
Is quality of work any better here than in some of those larger towns?
A little bit, just because we don't have quite the same call volume, so we're not going to be on the truck all day long. But long term, for most people that want to go in, the career opportunities and advancement careers are much better there.
Okay.
And they've got like full pension programs. They've got 20, 25 and out. We do not. So we've got a 457 or 459 plan. So.
But if you pitch the benefits of the small community, less stress with the aspect knowing down the road, there's going to be higher or more compensating reimbursement. Would that be a hook to bring these guys in?
We're trying. I've been trying to sell that.
Yeah.
Are other towns of our size facing similar
Everybody's
issues?
struggling. Everybody is struggling. The other big problem that we're having is, as Brian points out, so fire EMS has typically been not much above minimum wage, so getting people in and recruiting to do that. The commercial ambulance services, I mean, part of the reason why ASM pulled their ambulance out of this region, they can't staff the trucks that they have right now. Other fire departments around us, just everybody is short-staffed. Part of it's also a lot of people that could retire with COVID, and a lot of that did retire. A lot of the big cities, also their pension plan was take your best 2 or 3 years, and that's what bases your pension. So COVID, everybody worked a ton of overtime, and everybody's retiring in mass, which means it's putting a huge a drain on the system. And then also all of the programs that were coming through, so like the incoming paramedic programs, were all on hold for 2 years. So you have this huge gap of people leaving, and the incoming,
No funnel.
there was no funnel on the back end. For 2 years, the whole thing was shut down.
Yeah.
And it's causing these massive gaps. I mean, it's to the point where the city of New Haven basically is shutting down their paramedic program.
Wow.
So we're not alone. I mean, big cities and everybody are having problems with staff. But being on the very bottom of the low end of the pay scale hasn't helped us.
Okay.
So the only way you can fix that is next July, is that?
Correct. I mean, we're trying to do some things with training. We give them additional training opportunities here. We're very flexible with our schedule versus the city departments are very rigid on their schedules.
That's good.
So, like with Cody, he's going to need some very unique schedules and hours and shifting and moving around. I said I'll work with him. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's how we're going to maintain it.
So I'd like to make a motion that the board authorize the conditional employment of Cody Lemire for a full-time position.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
additional discussion? All in favor? Aye. John, keep us advised. I wish I had an answer for you in terms of how to get out of this conundrum, but
And I'm sure there's nothing at the state level with every community facing the same thing from small to large throughout the state, right? There's nothing the state's looking at doing.
No, actually, the state's making it harder because they've cut the funding from the state, like fire programs.
Yep.
So training new people, so a lot of the pipeline used to be the volunteer firefighters coming through. And so the problem is, I mean, there's one thing that was $500 to take an entry-level firefighting class. Well, now it's almost $2,000 to take an entry-level firefighting class. So a lot of these volunteer fire departments are having to pick and choose who they send on classes and whether or not they even put people through the class. So that again narrows down our income pipeline.
That's a big jump.
Well, it's just the funding got cut, the funding gets eliminated.
Yeah.
The state EMS side went to national registry, so Like an EMR class went from $300 to almost $700. Yes, the prices are going through the roof. So people like, you want to get a teenage, someone that's 18 or 19 that may be interested in a career. Used to be $500 you could get your certs, and nowadays they're talking $3,000 out of pocket.
Whose pocket?
Usually their own pocket.
Yeah.
Okay, John, thanks. Just keep us advised.
So if you had a qualified candidate and you offered to offset that, even if it was 6 months down the road reimbursed, would that give you a leg up, or is that too much of an ask, too much risk?
I think we can look at, one of the programs that's out there that we may want to look at long-term down the road is a lot of the career departments are going to what they call the recruit program, where they take somebody with no training and they send them to the State Fire Academy for 14 weeks. But that's a $12,000 class. But that may be an option or opportunity where you can take somebody that's got a paramedic but they don't have any fire background. And that's what the cities are doing now, is they're taking them and they're sending them to this recruit program. But that's something that definitely have to budget for and look at long term.
Right, and then you've got risk of loss, right?
I was
Because
gonna say, could you
Once
sign
there-
some kind of
once- yeah, once-
conditional agreement that says if
Nope,
we
state
do
of
this, you
Connecticut
have
said
to...
that is not enforceable.
I was going to bet that was about as enforceable as a non-compete commercial business. Good luck.
Are there any state or federal dollars that could offset that?
There may be some safer grant funding, so that's what I said we may be looking into something like that. I have started digging into some of that and looking at the cost for the recruit programs and things like that. And whether or
Any,
not that would open up.
anything in retired military that would be?
We've had good luck in the past, which is what several of my part-time members, several of my members are.
Yep.
But as I said, he's an active guard, but we end up with, a lot of times you end up with people that are in active guard or National Guard and things like that, and
Yeah.
they get activated again, which happens. I
Okay.
respect his service, so
No,
we're
no,
definitely
that-
keeping the position, so,
yeah.
but there's a catch-22 on that one as
Yeah,
well.
there is.
Ryan, from what do we put in the budget for overtime?
For the current fiscal year,
Yeah.
About 18,000.
I think it was 18, but
17, 18, something like that. I just want to give people a heads up. Obviously, my salary number is probably going to come in low. My overtime's going to may come in a little bit high. I mean, I was under budget this last year. The fire department ended in the black for the fiscal year last year. But I just want to at least let people know that there may be a little bit. We may have to do some transfer of funds between line items at the end of the year.
21,100 is what's for fiscal 22 in overtime.
Yeah, I would agree with Bud. If there's anything that you hear of that comes up that just offers us hope, let us know and let us know what we can do to help support it.
Yeah, this is a critical function. You can't leave people hanging, especially in emergency situations. But all right, John.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. The next item on the agenda is the Brownfield Grant. Potential vote on authorizing the first selectman to act and/or sign any necessary documents to secure the grant funding. I'll read a letter I received from the DECD, round 13 Brownfield Municipal Grant Applications for the Summersville Mill Assessment.
Do we have that or not?
I did not go, it was a big,
At
Okay.
40 Maple Street.
All right.
Dear Mr. Selectman Nora, congratulations. The Department of Economic and Community Development is pleased to award the town of Summers a granted amount of $65,730 in response to your application for funding under the Round 13 Brownfield Municipal Grant Program. Assessment only. They will send us the necessary documentation. What the holdup was in terms of signing an exclusive developer agreement with the proposed developer, SCG, was the cost of a Phase 3 environmental study. Now, we've done Phase 1 and Phase 2 studies, and they've come back clean. We've gone to our outside vendor, GEI, and asked them, was there potential for any problems associated with Phase 3? And they said, just about nil. Plus the fact that whatever construction is on that site, on the north side, it'll be capped with a building. So if there's any residual type environmental issues, it will be a moot point. SCG insisted that basically we pay for this. So in effect, we then applied for DECD for this grant, and we got the grant for $65,730. The original cost from GEI was $40,000. Is that right? $40,700, something to that effect. And which now, in effect, we can take the $65,000 and do both the north side and the south side. Is that correct, Brian?
That is correct.
As long as GEI agrees to do both sides for the for
Right.
that.
So I've gone
Yes.
reached out to our attorneys, their attorneys at SCG, and I said, listen, we're agreed to pay for the Phase 3 environmental study. They have the option to withdraw from the contract or the proposed lease agreement if we enter into that, if in fact they find anything there. But again, my opinion and GEI's opinion, we don't think there's anything of significance there. So this was a major stumbling block in terms of getting this next aspect in terms of the exclusive developer agreement side. So I'm waiting for them to come back to us. I anticipate they will sign that and then we'll start the process.
So the request is to authorize you to act on behalf of the town to secure the grant, not do anything other than that, just secure the grant.
That's correct.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and authorize the first selectman to act on behalf of the town's best interests and authorize necessary documents to secure the grant funding in the amount of $65,730 for the Phase 3 study.
Second that motion.
Additional discussion?
Yeah, just one thing I need to know is, okay, you get the grant and SEG understands.
SCG, yeah.
SEG?
SCG.
SCG.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go ahead and do the study, then what happens?
They in effect saying, if we find anything of significance, they have the option to withdraw from the
Right.
agreement.
That's assuming you don't.
Well, that's what we're saying, because we have to
Yeah.
rely upon our environmental
Yeah, I mean,
vendors.
there's no indication we've had up to now
No.
that there's any kind of
No.
problem there, if any
But
great
again, I kept
significance.
stressing the point through this stack of discussions with attorneys, their attorneys, is that what makes it different? You're going to cap the building anyhow. There are basically two sites on the north
The
side.
issue here is that they can't get financing unless they have this study. The
Yep.
bank wants to see a study. They don't care about our
Yeah,
engineer's opinion.
it's an automatic.
And it's all that matters to them. And that, I thought, was the only sticking point to signing the agreement. So
Right,
the
that's
attorneys
correct.
are looking at that too.
So
Once
today,
this is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
today SCG has an option to develop the property that they haven't executed.
They haven't executed the exclusive developer agreement,
Agreement.
okay, which was hung up by this phase, the
And it was hung
environmental
up by
cost,
that. And
which has now been removed.
they had added a term that we would pay for a Phase 3 study,
Got it.
which obviously was the foundation for them to obtain or seek financing.
So they sign the exclusive developer agreement, and then what happens?
We got to a lease agreement, and that whole process, so that's another whole.
So that has a bunch of steps in it, and
Yeah.
we can read it, but they have to go in front of our zoning commission. They have to provide all kinds of paperwork, et cetera, studies, whatever, so.
Whatever the PDD calls for, right?
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
That's in that planned development district.
Yeah, and it's all laid out in that agreement, and with, actually, there's timetables in there. Not
just-
specific dates, but specific times.
Yep.
Do this within 30 days, do this within.
Yeah, I remember when they were here, it's like years, you know. It's not- they're
No,
not gonna build
it'll
something
probably
next
go out a
week, so,
year,
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
certainly.
We were just trying to get to the altar. We couldn't even get that far because of the stumbling block, but now that's been removed.
Okay.
And I've talked with the consultants and with SCG and their attorneys, and they seem receptive. I said, fine, send us the contract. We'll submit to the board for approval for the exclusive developer agreement.
And as I recall, the concept of the developer agreement, Mike, was that once they have that option, then they go out to find funding, secure funding, and submit plans and all that other stuff. And
Yeah.
so there's still a lot of things that
There's a lot of things
would
that-
have to happen before anybody sticks a shovel in the dirt to build something.
Absolutely, yes.
From what I remember, there was only like once or twice a year that the funding was available.
That is
Correct.
correct,
Yep.
so,
And we've
Okay.
missed the first one.
so I think we probably missed it for this year, because they probably give the funding out in the.
Yeah, I feel like it was like April or something.
So,
Yeah.
but anyways, you get the ball rolling, and so then next year's cycle.
Yep.
we'll apply for the funding.
It's been tedious, it's been time consuming, it's been frustrating.
Yeah, but we're making a 100-year
Now we're at the
decision on a
point
piece
where-
of property, though. It's okay to take a little
And,
time.
and that's state financing, correct?
Yeah, it would be done through the state, it's now the DECD, used to be the CHFA.
Mm-hmm.
And some other good news is we have a $200,000 grant that we have to use by September of this year, which we can use to rebuild a portion of that wall on the south side. So we're going through not environmental studies, but through engineering studies, and we'll have that addressed also. The north side wall will be part of whatever agreement we have with SCG in terms of where they put the building.
It's the south side wall you're talking about.
South side, yes, you
Great,
know,
yeah.
it's
It's a
crumbling.
corner, yeah.
It's crumbling.
Bridge also, or not the bridge?
The bridge is part of a $2.1 million grant, which we think we're going to get, which we can use part of that also for the wall. So all these things are kind of dovetailing together. The irony about this, it's really pretty frustrating to me, is I saw that south side portion of that wall by the bridge crumbling. So we went out locally and said, hey, can you fix this for us? I got a price between $40,000 and $50,000. Okay, so then we find out we got this $200,000 grant, we can use it for that. Well, we can't use the grant until we get an engineering study done, which now I think is up to about $35,000 or $38,000. We have to get certified, approved contractors. It's probably going to cost us close to $200,000 anyhow. But that's the way it goes. Free money we'll use, but it's been pretty frustrating. Almost have to be an attorney to deal with this stuff. But anyway, we're making slow progress.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor for approval of the, voting on approving you to sign off on that. So that's ready for a vote.
Seconded.
Any additional discussion, gentlemen? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I'll keep everybody advised of the next steps, which will, as Mike indicates, will be tedious and time-consuming, but at least we're on a agenda now.
Just on the side, somebody was talking to me this weekend about how nice it looks over there since that was remediated and cleaned up, and they wanted to know why it took so long. You go through the whole thing, that you can't just go onto somebody's property and take stuff apart. You have to own it,
No,
fix
it's
it,
been-
get the funding, but
I don't know, Tim,
it
it's
has
probably
been.
been
well,
5 or 6 years since we started this.
It's
whole
5 years
process.
since the fire, or 6, right?
Yeah.
Longer than that. The fire was before I started here, and that's been 7 years.
But still, I think it does look good, and
Oh,
the
it looks
fact that the net
fantastic.
cost to the town's like next to nothing is
We have other
a lot
options,
of work.
okay? I mean, hopefully SCG will put some sort of facility in there which will benefit
Yeah.
tax rules, et cetera. But if not, we have other options.
Yeah,
We can
anyway,
park,
just
whatever the case may be.
Nice to hear good feedback from the town once in a while, and it was.
Yeah, I mean, people really enjoy the existing.
Right.
Well, I know how
open
much work
space.
you put into the committee, the remediation committee that we put together to get it started and get the funding found and all that. That's, a lot's gone into it, but it's nice to see it looking better and people appreciating the work that was done.
It's been there now about 2 years, right, that we've had it cleaned up and
Yeah.
grass and
Yep.
Frustrating. The next item is EMPG grant resolution. I'm going to table this. We don't have sufficient information from Glenn Reynolds, who's on vacation, in terms of this grant, but it's we're going to get him to tell us the details on this. It's a small grant, I think,
I was confused.
15 to 18,000, but I don't have additional details. We'll table that till the next meeting or until Glenn gets back to us. The next item is the Planning Commission recommendation to accept Bridle Path Drive as a town road.
what were the pros and cons of that?
Well, I sent this information to you gentlemen.
Did I get it? I
Yes.
didn't see it.
I don't recall seeing it either, but.
This is from Jen Roy, as discussed last week, attached are the minutes from the June 10th Planning Commission meeting, where they approved and referred to the Board of Selectmen the acceptance of the Bridle Path Drive as a town road. The town attorney has approved the deed as well, so the final step is the Board of Selectmen approval.
When did you send that? Because I don't
I
show it
never
in my
saw it.
email either.
You said that
I did not send that. I did not. I got
Or I'll
that
read
from
the
Jen.
minutes. Minutes, members present, Greg Gentlot, Anna Van Windegarden, Jim McPhee, Bill Salka, Brad Pellisier, and Jennifer Roy. Motion was made by Brad Pellisier to take the agenda out of order. Second by Alan Van Windergarden. All in favor, motion carried. Selection of a new planning commission chairman. Bill Salka nominates Brad Pellisier. Adam Van Windergarden second. All in favor, Brad Pellisier is the new commission chairman. Second, Bridle Path acceptance from Richard A. McCullough, Incorporated, to the town of Summers. Brief discussion was held. Maps were reviewed. Town attorney Carl Landolino approved all deed documents, and Jeff Board, the consulting engineer, approved the map as submitted. Brad Pellisier made a motion for the acceptance of Bridle Path Drive from Richard A. McCullough, Incorporated, to the town of Summers, and referred to the Board of Selectmen for final approval and acceptance. Bill Salk will second the motion. All in favor, motion carried unanimously. So it's just like a new subdivision, Bridle Path, which is
Yes. You mind if I comment, because I'm kind of
No.
familiar with looking at, I mean, Bridle Path has always existed as a drive. It's a town road.
It's been
You
there
go
for-
up Valley View and you turn left.
That's all right.
Now McCullough put a whole new addition, so you now turn right,
Extended it.
extended it, and it's a cul-de-sac with some very high-end.
Very expensive homes.
Very high-end homes, 3 or 4 of them. And so I think that's what they're accepting as a town road.
Correct.
So that it's confusing because you think the existing bridle path isn't, but it is a town road
It's an
already.
extension.
Because it's been there for 20-some years.
They should have just called it bridle path extension. It would have confused, it was confusing,
that
but.
makes sense.
Good point, yeah.
So, does that create any angst for your team trying to find house numbers as far as you know, or are we
No,
good?
I think we've already been calls up there. I mean, the houses are there, we've been occupied, we've been there.
So there are no cons to
No.
this becoming
No,
a
it's
town
not.
road.
It's just a routine.
And the
to- now
benefits
the-
is it
now the
gets
snowplows
plowed.
can go
Yeah,
in there
right,
and
yeah.
plow it.
I make a motion that we accept the Bridle Path Drive as a town road
I'll
Bridle
second
Path
that.
extension
extension.
as a town road.
All right, so this says
It
Bridle
says
Path
Bridle
Drive,
Path
it doesn't
Drive.
say Bridle
Yeah,
Path Drive.
we should
extension.
say
So it's just
extension. Yeah,
extension.
that's a good point. Yes.
Whatever.
But
it's
that's
in
the name of the
planning
road. I
minutes.
don't think they called it extension, so you just have to accept it as the
As a
name of the
road.
road by the planning
Right.
commission.
Whatever the. is
So,
in that.
and-
So I
the
want to
town-
make sure
But
that
the
Tim's
Bridle,
motion is,
Bridle Path Drive, Bridle Path has been a road in town for 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's called Drive though now, yeah.
I just want to make
Maybe
sure
they
his motion
renamed
is properly worded. so-
What does it say in the planning?
Bridle Path Drive.
I would go
Okay.
with what planning said.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
we'll
what
call
you go
it,
with.
motion we accept Bridle Path Drive as a town road.
I'll second the motion.
Additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Welcome, Bridle Path Drive.
The next item is recommendation for discussion by Tim Keeney, Enfield Regional Public Safety Complex. I think everybody
Yeah,
received
there's copies there.
Yep.
this information.
Yeah, there was an article in the newspaper about 2 or 3 weeks ago about this, and basically Enfield has been successful in gaining approximately $13 million funding, state funding, for a regional public safety complex, which would be built onto, in addition to the existing police department, and it would involve police, fire, and EMS joint training and training with other communities. As part of the proposal, again, the other communities were East Windsor, Suffield, and Windsor Locks. And I spoke with Chris Bromson about this, who's the Enfield town manager, and they would be very excited to have Summers participate in this, and would be willing to put out a joint announcement, press release, whatever would be helpful. Rick Fox, who's the Enfield police chief, would also welcome Summers' participation. I guess the fact that Summers is a resident trooper
Yeah.
may have some impact on this.
It does.
But the training, what impact does it have? Tell me.
Well, I mean, we actually
So-
get free trainings. I've had Kim Liddick send me some stuff. I just received it. Some of these classes are at no cost to us. We go through the POSTC, go through the state police. We participated in Enfield and some other folks. And so I guess the question I'm asking is, what do we get out of this?
Yeah, what we get out of this is we get better regional coordination. We get better training that might be more accessible to our people. Training would be available for social workers to handle domestic violence calls, mass casualty incidents, where the individuals, and they would be regional individuals, would be familiar with all the schools and the town halls in the region. So they've mapped it out in advance. They're familiar with the property. They know where the entrances are, exits. They would give probable cause seminars by Chris Parakilis, who's the state's attorney in Enfield. de-escalation training for officers, police officers, active shooter training. I mean, I'm sure some of these things are duplicative maybe of what they get elsewhere, but
I don't know if duplicative is bad.
I think it's the key here is the regional aspect.
Yeah, I
So
think
you've
that-
got people that are in adjacent towns all getting the same training, and part of the training is becoming familiar with the
Did they give any indication, Tim, as to the cost associated with this?
no cost. No cost.
And I think too, Tim, the collaboration that the professionals get, should we need those services, certainly helps in times of crisis, right? So we just heard John talk about how hard it is to find staffing. Well, if, let's say we have a mass casualty event at the prison, we need to bring people in. If they've trained shoulder to shoulder with the people who are on site, I gotta think that's a benefit.
They also offer training for continuing medical education for EMR, EMT, and paramedics. And the bottom line is that the facility would allow greater regional coordination, resulting in better synchronized response to emergency situations. So you'd be able to, if it's a big deal, whatever it happens to be.
Listen, I'm all in favor of redundancy in training. I've asked, my concern was the resident state trooper contract that we have. And this is Kim's comment. Summers is unique to these full-time departments. All these towns apparently are not resident state trooper towns. So they have a vested interest in something like this. Summers is unique to these full-time departments as we are under a contractual agreement as a resident state police town. So even though we are required, like other Connecticut police departments, to be certified in certain mandates, the protocols for law enforcement operations and activities are the authority of the Connecticut State Police. All patrol activities and investigative methods, telecommunications, and similar police services are at the direction of the Connecticut State Police. If we have a major incident that occurred in Summers, it will be at the direction and set forth in the current State Police Administrative and Operation Manual. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not negative to this, I'm just trying to figure out.
How it
Can I
benefits.
ask you a question? So what about the fire department? What about social services department? They're not under contract with the state
That
police.
would be
No,
a good.
I agree with
Right.
you on that.
And
The
I-
social services that Tim mentioned and some of the other mental health stuff, I think
And
is a
the
good
fire
idea.
department, the
I think,
EMR,
too, that-
EMT, and paramedics.
In my time helping out at town levels, that contract with the state police has gotten less and less beneficial to the town with less and less involvement because of the changes at the state police. So I get that we're under contract, but I don't know that that's the same value that we got 10 years ago.
When I read what Tim had sent,
Mhm.
the benefits, of course, are the mental health and the social services aspect, which we currently don't have in full.
And the shooting range, don't forget that. That's going
Well-
to be an up-to-date, modern.
I understand that.
Shooting
That's another aspect.
at night.
All the people that we've hired are certified ex-state
So-
police officers.
So why don't, instead of asking Kim, why don't we just ask the troop?
Yeah,
And
I'm
ask
going
them
to.
what's going on.
I just got this, so I just
Yeah.
got this
Yeah.
10 minutes ago. So what I'll do is I'll investigate it.
How can you
If there are
say,
benefits
it's a
associated-
no-brainer if it's no cost?
Yeah, is
I
there
agree.
no cost for our people to
No.
attend? It's just,
Right.
so who's underwriting the cost for Enfield? Is it all through state grant?
The state is,
That's nice.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Okay. I'll follow up with this.
And the more people, the more towns and populations they have participating, they get more money.
well, and this is what we've talked about for years. How do we
Yeah.
collaborate with neighboring
Well,
towns?
this is what
Exactly.
the legislature wants. They want collaboration.
Regional,
They want
yeah,
the
which is
towns
clearly-
to do this. I can't imagine them police standing in the way.
Are they doing a new dispatch center there? Or
It says it would expand dispatch, yeah.
So I think those those towns all share a dispatch center, which we are not part of because we're part of Collin County 911. I'm all for the training, but the $12 million can't be for training because you can put the trainer.
No, obviously they're building a building.
They're building now.
They
yeah,
bought
an
they
addition.
bought additional 10 acres of land.
Correct. So I'm just wondering what training room's going to be nice, but what else are they doing in the building? If it's a dispatch center, that makes sense. But we just have to be.
I think there's a map
They
here.
want to become the host of
There's
a regional dispatch.
There's a
center
map
in the future.
attached to what
Talking
it's going
about
to look
EMT,
like.
So,
EMT
We
training.
just have to. So the state funds the state gives each dispatch center an
This is a
allocation
map of what it looks like.
Yeah,
Great. Based on population that that dispatch center serves. So obviously, the state is encouraging regional dispatch centers, which is why Enfield PD is trying to become much more of a regional dispatch center. We currently are part of Talon County Dispatch Center. Pros and cons of that, we do that, but the downside with Talon County is they don't do police dispatch.
So that's got kind of, I think
Correct.
it's more than dispatch,
So that's what I said, but that's why I think there's a lot more to this than.
yeah.
I think it's a great start, and then if dispatch becomes an issue 2 or 3 years down the road, we may have more options tomorrow than we have today. That's not a bad thing
Correct.
either. So Tim, what do you need here? Just
You want
Well,
a letter from the selectmen to them saying that we are signing on, or we?
Well, I think first of all, we need to understand what we're signing up for
Yeah.
and how
I'd like to
limited
get-
that
I'd
might
like to
be.
get more details, I mean, in terms of what are the benefits associated in terms of the things not that we currently have. And
Right.
secondly, there's no conflict with the state police contract, which I
yeah,
can
that's a good
address.
point.
And then in essence, I'm in favor of something like this if we can benefit, there's no cost to us.
Yep, good.
I find it interesting, there is no cost for training since,
Yeah. But see how you write to the governor to get the grant for the State Bonding Commission to build something. It's purely, I mean,
Political.
it's political because it circumvents a whole bunch of
Well, it's-
grant application
yeah,
processes.
it's to his objective.
It's not, I mean, it's not wrong, it's done.
Yeah, it's to his objective to go to regionalization, which I'm in favor of, because small towns like Summers.
The Fermi building sits empty, right? Why are we building a new building? But that's state money going out the door again, I suppose.
All right, let me get with I'll get with the state police.
Don't be too
I'll make
much.
sure there's
I
no
know.
issues in terms of the contract.
There's a big
Yeah,
empty
we
building.
get more
over there.
details in terms of the other benefits associated with the mental health and the social services.
I like
And
it.
the fire training.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
communication.
that's great.
Yeah.
And they are-
That wouldn't
Enfield's
come
unique
out of
that
any
they've got-
contract with the state police.
Enfield EMS doesn't have a training room, so I mean, I'm familiar with their station, it's an old schoolhouse. It's full of trucks and no training, there's no meeting rooms, so they can't do training there. And they've got 5 different fire departments, so having
Yep.
a centralized training that they can all do together makes sense for them, so that you're not on anybody's turf.
That's good.
Yeah.
I get it.
So then this will come back in a couple of weeks or a week or so? And we'll
Yeah,
get-
I mean,
yeah,
what
that'd be good.
jumped out at me when I got this from Tim is that I looked at these other towns, they weren't resident state troopers,
No, they're not.
which
Yeah.
basically logged my memory. I said, geez, are we in conflict with the agreement, which,
And they're all in Hartford County.
yeah. I'll take a look at that and I'll get
Yeah.
back to you gentlemen on that, okay?
Right. And it is Hartford County, not Tolland.
But we are neighbors, so.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
There's some accommodation that can be made, who knows?
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
We're the only
Yeah.
neighboring community not participating, so.
The next item is the boards and commission. I have 3 new requests for appointments to the Cultural Commission and 1 resignation. The first recommendation is from Elaine Friedman. Dear Ms. Levesque, per our telephone conversation of Tuesday, July 6th, I'm interested in being considered for a vacancy on the Summers Cultural Committee. I feel my interest and knowledge with cultural activities. The town of Summers will allow me to be an asset to this commission. As a resident of and registered voter in the town of Summers, I believe would qualify me for this appointment and would be gratefully received. I've been a resident of Summers since 1972, with less than 1 year of departure in 1994. I currently reside at 200 Billings Road. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me to discuss all the interesting events that are planned for the coming year, which I love to be part of, along with the requirements of being a member. Your consideration of this written application for appointment to fill the vacancy, the Summers Cultural Commission would be appreciated. I look forward to hearing from you and the town regarding your appointment. Sincerely, Elaine Freeman. Want to take these one at a time?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Elaine Freeman to the Summers Cultural Commission for request.
I'll second that.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Second one was from Teresa Smith. Hi, Ann. Zan Levesque. I am a Democrat in town. I understand you have some vacancies on the Cultural Committee. I would like to request to become a member. I am and I have always been interested in the arts and the cultures of different people. In the past, when my children were in the summer school system, I was active in the summer's music patrons as a president, as well as the high school drama club. The arts are important, and I would like to show my support in arts on to this commission. Sincerely, Terry Schmidt.
Make a motion to appoint Terry Schmidt to fill a vacancy on the Cultural Commission.
Second?
Additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The last recommendation is from Janice Gency, registered Democratic. As you know, one of my main objectives of the Cultural Committee is to utilize its human and other resources to drive change, as well as to garner ideas from a diverse member of the town or city as a means of driving that change, which includes social, economic changes, etc. Thanks to the Summer's Cultural Committee, members of our town have enjoyed some exciting events over the years. My objective in wanting to be part of the committee is to not only add diversity to the committee, but to work collectively with a group of like-minded people to improve the culture in this town by devising ways to encourage social behaviors and norms and to move the town forward in the 21st century of acceptance and reconciliation through art, music, food, and more. Sincerely, Janice Gency, registered Democrat.
Her last name is
Is it
It's Giselle
Janice.
Janice.
Giselle
Janice.
Yeah.
Janice.
And that's for
Giselle
cultural.
Janice.
Yeah.
That's for Cultural Commission also.
Yeah, they
Culture
have
Committee.
12 members now for their full.
I want to compliment
Ann
Ann
Levesque
Levesque.
is-
She's done a great
She
job
is
here.
thrilled.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Giselle Janice to the Cultural Commission.
I'll second that motion.
Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. And I think too that should be a public thanks to Ann for all the work she's
Yes,
done. to
yeah,
get that
Maggie,
committee
that's
going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
She's been very active. She's in here all the time.
She's great.
And thanks for the 3 people who said yes.
Yes, no
That's
kidding.
fantastic.
She's always very good at collecting money. She's hit me up a couple times.
She's wonderful.
Unfortunately, we have one resignation from Victoria Oliver. Hi, Ann. I'm sorry,
What's the
but-
name? What's the name?
Victoria Oliver, Oliver. I am sorry, but I am going to resign from the Summers Cultural Commission for personal reasons. I know I pushed hard to get appointed, and I appreciate the effort you took on my behalf, but I realize now that I am just not up for the job at this time, neither physically or mentally. I think my desire to join the Summers Cultural Committee may have been a reaction in part to the quarantine we all went through this past year. I was feeling a real need to connect with people, to contribute to the town in a small way, and to actually get to know more people in town. Even though we have lived here for 40 years, except for the last few years, I always worked full-time, so I never actually got to know very many people here. I thought that getting involved with the Summers Cultural Committee would be a good thing for me, and it probably would be, but I don't think this is where I really need to be at this time in my life. Regarding the publicity coordinator position I volunteered for, it seems to me that most tasks are already being handled by various members, and I never actually got a good handle on what the expectations were for me. I don't think I contributed very much, actually. Please accept my apologies. This summer's cultural members, you made me feel more welcome.
Very honest.
And I really appreciated that. They're a nice group of people, you included. My husband and I are going to a concert in Coventry this Friday, but that is simply for my own enjoyment. I do hope that you go as well, because I love this town and will enjoy them. So, I accept Ms. Oliver's resignation with regret.
Very good.
Thank you.
Nice letter.
Second.
It was
Yep.
a nice
Yep,
one.
All
very
in
nice.
favor? Yeah. Again, acknowledge Ann. She's been very active. She spent a lot of time and has been very effective in terms of this culture committee, as evidenced by the nice concerts that we've put together this past summer and also in the fall. The last item on the agenda is the authorization of scheduled payments, which has been sent to both you gentlemen. Any questions or concerns?
Just that I didn't get treated over lunch on Wednesday, Brian, so I'm a little bit disappointed.
Not bad on that. It actually got scanned to me, and then I was getting other stuff done, and I I came in this morning and I was like, oh, forgot to send those to them.
So there are a couple offers in there.
Like-
One of them, Webster Capital Finance for $79,000. Is that an annual lease for
Annual
dump
lease.
trucks and things?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we authorize the scheduled payments of $1,156,772.69.
I'll second that.
Any additional discussion, questions?
I did have one item
Oh,
that you
sorry.
Yeah, the
I'm just gonna get back to
Wigan
that.
and Dana was
Yeah.
it was work on the grant application for the phase 3
Okay.
with the ECD. Their review, I guess, of the application, and Jeff Ward was submitting it.
Right, $665.
Yep.
And then the other one I saw was Glasso Materials. I'm presuming that's for roads
Road
and
paving, that's part of the bond. Yep.
Already asked earlier today all the questions I had, which were all answered.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Those technically June payments or July payments?
They're cross. There's some that are June, there's some that are July.
10% of our municipal budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
400.
Aye.
Okay.
Actually, about 600,000 of it wasn't his.
Thank you, gentlemen. Take your raincoats.
Yeah.
Because 400,000 was bond, like 200,000 was guardrails that came out